My name is Tom Patterson, and if you'd told me a year ago that my passion for birdwatching would lead to the complete destruction of my marriage, I would have laughed in your face. But life has a funny way of revealing truths in the most unexpected ways, and sometimes the universe chooses the strangest messengers to deliver its most devastating revelations. It was a dreary March morning when everything began. The kind of morning where the gray sky seemed to press down on suburban Detroit like a heavy blanket, and even the most optimistic person would struggle to find beauty in the world. But I'd found my escape from the monotony of pandemic life in the most unlikely place, the fascinating world of backyard birding. Tom, honey, there's a delivery truck outside, Jennifer called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that particular note of resigned amusement she'd developed since I'd taken up my new hobby. Please tell me you didn't order another pair of those ridiculous birding binoculars. They're not ridiculous, I protested, rushing to the front door with an excitement I hadn't felt since Christmas morning as a kid. And no, it's not binoculars. It's something much better. The delivery driver handed me a surprisingly heavy box, and I signed with a flourish. My hands were actually trembling as I carried it inside. $800. That's what this top-of-the-line smart bird feeder had cost me, and I'd had to dip into my personal savings to afford it without triggering a marital discussion about budgets and priorities. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for our anniversary. Even first thing in the morning, she was beautiful. Honey blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun. Those green eyes that had captivated me since our first date in college. For a moment, looking at her, I felt guilty about the secret purchase. Another expensive toy? She said, but there was a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Let me guess. This one can identify birds from space? Not quite, I said, setting the box on our dining table and carefully cutting through the tape. But close. This baby has AI-powered recognition software that can identify over 10,000 bird species. It sends real-time alerts to my phone when rare birds visit, keeps a comprehensive log of all activity, and the camera quality is absolutely incredible. 4K resolution with night vision. Jennifer moved closer, peering over my shoulder as I unpacked the device. $800, she read from the invoice that I'd stupidly left in the box. Tom, seriously? We could have put that toward the kitchen renovation. I know, I said quickly. But think of it as an investment in science. Citizen ornithology is contributing to real research about migration patterns, population changes, climate impact on species distribution. Save the TED Talk, she interrupted, but she was laughing. You know I can't stay mad at you when you get that excited professor look. She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of her perfume. Something new, I noticed. Just promise me this is the last bird-related purchase for a while? Scout's honor, I lied, already mentally browsing the website for the compatible solar panel and extended range antenna. She shook her head and headed back to the kitchen. I've got to get ready for work. Some of us have to earn money to pay for our husbands' hobbies. There's coffee in the pot, bird nerd. Hey, I called after her. You love that I have hobbies. Remember what you said during lockdown? That if I didn't find something to do besides work, you were going to lose your mind? I was thinking more along the lines of golf or woodworking, she called back. You know, normal middle-aged man hobbies, not turning our backyard into a National Geographic documentary. But I could hear the affection in her voice, and I smiled as I continued unpacking the feeder. The device itself was a marvel of engineering. Sleek white polymer housing that would weather any storm, multiple feeding ports to accommodate different species, and the camera lens positioned perfectly to capture both close-ups and wider environmental shots. I spent the entire Saturday setting it up, much to Jennifer's amusement. She brought me lunch on the deck, watching as I adjusted and readjusted the mounting pole. You're being awfully particular about this, she observed, settling into one of our deck chairs with her own coffee. I don't think the birds care if it's perfectly level. The positioning is crucial, I explained, using my level app for the dozenth time. Too high and ground-feeding birds won't trigger the sensor. Too low and squirrels will dominate the footage. And the background needs to be uncluttered for the AI to properly focus on the birds. See, if I angle it just right, it'll capture the feeder itself and just a bit of the driveway in the background, which gives environmental context without being distracting. She laughed, that tinkling sound that had first caught my attention at that college party 22 years ago. Environmental context? Tom, honey, you're taking this very seriously. Well, if you're going to do something, do it right, I said, making another minor adjustment. Besides, this is going to be amazing. We'll be able to watch birds from inside when it's cold, identify species we've never seen before, contribute to migration databases. We? She interrupted with a raised eyebrow. Okay, fine. I'll be able to do all that. But you'll enjoy the pictures. Remember how excited you got when we saw that pileated woodpecker last month? That was pretty cool, she admitted. It was huge, like a prehistoric bird or something. Exactly. And now we'll be able to capture moments like that. Plus, the app sends notifications for rare sightings. Imagine getting an alert that some incredibly rare bird is in our backyard. We could see something that only a handful of people in Michigan have ever witnessed. Jennifer stood up, walking over to wrap her arms around me from behind. I love how passionate you get about this stuff, even if I don't understand it completely. It's like watching you when you talk about tax law. Your whole face lights up. Tax law is fascinating, I protested. To you, maybe. To the rest of us, it's a cure for insomnia. But that's what I love about you, Tom. You find joy in things other people overlook. I turned to face her, struck by a sudden wave of affection. Have I told you lately that I love you? Not since this morning, she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss me properly. But you can tell me again. I love you, Jennifer Patterson. I love you too, bird nerd. Now finish setting up your toy. I've got some work emails to catch up on. She headed inside, and I watched her go, thinking not for the first time how lucky I was. 22 years together, 12 of them married, and she still made my heart skip a beat. Sure, things had gotten routine, especially during the pandemic when we were both working from home, stepping on each other's toes, struggling to maintain boundaries between work and life. But we'd made it through. We were solid. Or so I thought. The feeder was an immediate success. Within an hour of filling it with premium birdseed mix, we had our first visitors. A pair of northern cardinals, the male's brilliant red plumage practically glowing against the gray March sky. The app on my phone pinged with the identification, complete with interesting facts about their mating habits and territorial behavior. Jennifer, come look! I called excitedly. Cardinals! She poked her head out the back door. Beautiful! The red one is the male! Yep. And see how he's picking out the best seeds and offering them to the female? That's courtship feeding. Cardinals mate for life, and the male shows his ability to provide by finding the best food for his partner. Romantic, she said. Maybe you could learn something from him. Hey, I provide! Who bought you that expensive coffee machine you wanted? True, she conceded. Though the cardinal probably doesn't make his mate listen to 40-minute presentations about bird migration patterns. That was one time. It was 3 times, honey, but who's counting? She winked and went back inside. Over the next few weeks, I fell completely down the rabbit hole of backyard birding. My morning started with checking the overnight footage, hoping for glimpses of nocturnal visitors. I discovered that we had a family of mourning doves that arrived precisely at 6:47 a.m. each day, like clockwork. A pair of blue jays had claimed the feeder as part of their territory and spent considerable energy chasing away competitors. During my lunch breaks at the accounting firm, I'd pull up the live feed on my phone, watching the afternoon crowd jostle for position. My coworkers had started calling me Birdman, but I didn't care. This was far more interesting than reviewing audit reports and tax documents. You know, Patterson, my colleague Mark said one day, catching me watching the feed during a break, there are worse midlife crises. Henderson bought a motorcycle and wrapped it around a tree. Johnson left his wife for his CrossFit instructor. You just watch birds. It's not a midlife crisis, I protested. It's a hobby, a scientific hobby. Sure. Just saying. As far as middle-aged white guy obsessions go, this one's pretty harmless. Plus, Linda says the bird photos you've been sharing are actually pretty cool. They are cool, Did you see the red-bellied woodpecker from yesterday? Mark laughed. I did. Never knew woodpeckers had such long tongues. Kind of creepy, actually. Evenings were spent reviewing the day's highlights, organizing sightings into my life list on eBird, and sharing particularly good photos with my online birding community. I'd joined several Facebook groups and a Discord server, finding a whole community of people who shared my newfound passion. Jennifer seemed supportive, though I noticed she'd stopped making eye contact during my bird reports at dinner. 17 species today, I told her over pasta one evening, including a white-breasted nuthatch, which apparently isn't rare, but it's the first one we've had at the feeder. Did you know they can walk head-first down tree trunks? They're like the acrobats of the bird world. That's wonderful, honey, she said, but she was looking at her phone. Am I boring you? She looked up quickly. No, sorry, just checking an email from Richard about tomorrow's presentation. You know how he is. Sends revisions at all hours. Richard Sterling, the VP of Sales at her marketing firm. I'd met him at several company functions. Smooth talker, expensive suits, the kind of guy who had a different Rolex for each day of the week. Also married with 2 kids in private school, if I remembered correctly. Isn't it a bit late for work emails? I asked. You know how it is during campaign season, she said, putting her phone aside. Everyone's stressed about the Henderson account. Richard's been particularly demanding. Wants everything perfect for the client presentation on Friday. Well, don't let him work you too hard. You've been putting in long hours lately. I know. But if this campaign goes well, it could really boost my chances for that VP position. I've been working toward this for 2 years, Tom. I can handle a few late nights. I know you can, I said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. I'm proud of you. Just remember to take care of yourself, too. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Thanks, honey. So tell me more about this nuthatch. What makes it special? I launched into an explanation of their unique anatomy and behavior, grateful that she was showing interest. Looking back now, I wonder if she was just deflecting, keeping me talking about birds so I wouldn't ask more questions about work. The turning point came 3 weeks later, on an unseasonably warm Tuesday in late March. I was in the middle of a particularly tedious audit review, one of those mind-numbing corporate accounts where everything looked the same as last quarter and the quarter before that. My eyes were starting to glaze over when my phone buzzed with a notification I'd never seen before. Rare bird alert. Painted bunting at your feeder. My heart nearly stopped. A painted bunting? Here, in Michigan? They were southern birds, found in Florida and Texas and the Carolinas. One showing up this far north, especially this early in the season, was almost unheard of. If confirmed, this would be a significant sighting for our region, the kind of thing that would have serious birders driving hours to see. With shaking hands, I opened the app. The video loaded slowly, probably because I was immediately downloading the highest quality version. But when it finally played, there it was in all its glory. A male painted bunting, sometimes called the rainbow bird for good reason. His head was a brilliant blue, his eye ring red, his back a vivid green, and his underparts a stunning scarlet. He looked like a child's coloring book come to life, too beautiful to be real. The timestamp showed 2:17 p.m., just 10 minutes ago. My mind raced. Should I leave work? No. By the time I got home, he'd probably be gone. These vagrants rarely stayed in one place long, but I could share this with the birding community immediately. I started the download process for the full video, already composing my post in my head. I'd need to include the exact location, the time, weather conditions, what he was eating, how long he stayed. This was the kind of sighting that would make me a celebrity in the Michigan birding community. As the high-resolution video played on my phone, I watched the bunting pick through the seeds with delicate precision. He was so vibrant against the dull March backdrop, like a tropical jewel that had been misplaced. The camera had captured him perfectly, every feather, every subtle movement. It was only as I watched him fly away that I noticed something in the background that made me pause. A blue Honda Civic had just pulled into our driveway. Jennifer's car. I frowned, my excitement about the bunting momentarily forgotten. I checked the timestamp again. 2:23 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Jennifer should have been at her office downtown, probably in the middle of the weekly creative team meeting she always complained about. 3 hours of my life I'll never get back, she'd say every Tuesday evening. Half the team video conferences in anyway. We could do the whole thing remotely. Had she come home sick? I grabbed my phone to text her, then hesitated. If she wasn't feeling well, she'd probably gone straight to bed. The last thing she'd want was me pestering her with questions. I'd check on her when I got home. But something nagged at me. Call it intuition, or maybe just the analytical mind of an accountant noticing a discrepancy. I found myself scrolling back through the day's footage, looking for when she'd left that morning. There it was, 7:47 a.m., her usual departure time. She'd paused at her car, checking something on her phone, then driven off. Nothing unusual there. She always left before 8 to beat the worst of the morning traffic. So why was she home at 2:23 p.m.? I tried to refocus on the audit, but my mind kept wandering. Maybe she had a doctor's appointment she'd forgotten to mention. Maybe she was working from home for the afternoon. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation that I'd laugh about later. Unable to concentrate, I decided to check the previous Tuesday's footage. The app made it easy to navigate by date, one of the features that had justified its premium price tag. March 5th, a Tuesday. I scrolled to the afternoon hours, not really expecting to find anything. 2:15 p.m., Jennifer's car pulling into the driveway. I stared at the screen, a cold feeling settling in my stomach. I checked the Tuesday before that. February 27th, 2:08 p.m. There was her car again. A pattern was emerging, one that made my accountant's brain start firing in ways that had nothing to do with numbers. Every Tuesday, it seemed, Jennifer's car appeared in our driveway in the early afternoon, hours before she was supposedly done with work. "Patterson, you okay?" Mark's voice startled me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "What?" "Oh yeah, fine, just found something unexpected in the bird footage." "Another rare bird?" "Something like that," I muttered, turning back to my computer screen while my mind raced. I forced myself to finish the audit, but it was perfunctory at best. As soon as 5 o'clock hit, I was out the door, my usual stop at the coffee shop forgotten. I needed to get home, needed to talk to Jennifer, needed to understand what was going on. But when I pulled into our driveway, the same driveway that had become mysteriously popular on Tuesday afternoons, everything looked normal. Jennifer's car was in its usual spot. Through the kitchen window, I could see her moving around, probably starting dinner. The perfect picture of domestic normalcy. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, trying to decide how to handle this. Should I confront her immediately? Should I gather more evidence first? Should I pretend nothing was wrong while I figured out what to do? In the end, cowardice won. I walked into the house with a smile plastered on my face, kissed my wife hello, and asked about her day. "Oh, the usual," she said, stirring something on the stove that smelled like her famous chicken marsala. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of garlic and wine, and she'd set the table with our good plates. Budget meetings all morning, then creative reviews all afternoon. I swear, if I have to look at one more revision of the Henderson account campaign, I might scream. The lie came so easily to her. No hesitation, no tells that I could spot. She'd looked me right in the eye and fabricated an entire afternoon of meetings while I knew she'd been home by 2:15. "How was your day, honey?" she continued, tasting the sauce and adding a pinch more salt. "Any interesting birds?" The question felt like a trap, though she couldn't possibly know what I'd discovered. "Actually, yes," I said carefully. "We had a painted bunting at the feeder." Her eyes widened with what seemed like genuine interest. "A painted bunting? Isn't that the really colorful one you showed me in your bird book?" "That's right. They're not supposed to be this far north. It's quite rare." "That's wonderful. Did you get good footage?" "Crystal clear. The camera really captures everything in perfect detail." Was it my imagination, or did she stiffen slightly at that? But no, she just continued stirring the sauce, asking, Did you share it with your bird group? I bet they were excited. I haven't yet, I admitted. I wanted to review all the footage first, make sure I had all the details right. You know how particular the birding community can be about rare sightings. They'll want exact times, weather conditions, behavior patterns. You and your attention to detail, she said fondly. That's what makes you such a good accountant, and apparently a good birder too. We ate dinner together, the conversation flowing as naturally as it always did. Jennifer told me about a new client they were pitching, her mother's upcoming birthday, a funny story about her coworker's dating disaster. I participated on autopilot, my mind churning through possibilities. You're quiet tonight, she observed as we cleared the dishes. Everything okay? Just tired, I said. Long day with the Morrison audit. Poor baby. Why don't you go relax with your bird videos? I've got some emails to catch up on anyway. I took her suggestion, settling into my home office with my laptop. But instead of posting about the painted bunting, I found myself conducting a very different kind of investigation. The Smart Feeders app was remarkably user-friendly, with robust search and filter functions. I could sort by date, time, species identified, even weather conditions. But tonight, I was only interested in one thing: Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. What I found made my blood run cold. The pattern wasn't just Tuesdays. Thursdays, too. Jennifer's car appeared in the driveway between 2 o'clock and 2:30 p.m. Every single Thursday for the past month, which was as far back as the camera's storage went. But that wasn't the worst part. On Thursday, March 7th, at 2:19 p.m., 11 minutes after Jennifer arrived home, a black pickup truck pulled into our driveway. The camera angle showed a man getting out, youngish, maybe early 30s, wearing athletic gear. He walked toward our front door with the confidence of someone who knew where he was going. The angle didn't show the door itself, but he never returned to his vehicle. Not for over 2 hours. At 4:38 p.m., he emerged back into the camera's view, climbed into his truck, and drove away. 17 minutes later, Jennifer's car left too. Then, at 5:32 p.m., it returned, right around her normal time home from work. My hands were shaking as I navigated to the previous Thursday. Same black pickup truck, same athletic man, same pattern. Arrive shortly after Jennifer, stay for approximately 2 hours, leave before she had to return to maintain her cover. But Tuesdays? Tuesdays were different. I scrolled back to March 5th, the Tuesday I'd already identified. At 2:31 p.m., 8 minutes after Jennifer's arrival, a silver BMW pulled up. The man who got out was older, wearing a dark suit. He walked to our door with the same easy familiarity as Thursday's visitor. I zoomed in on one of the clearer frames and felt my stomach drop. I knew that car. I knew that suit. I knew that distinctive way of walking, shoulders back, chin up, like he owned the world. Richard Sterling, Jennifer's boss. The married VP of sales with 2 kids in private school. The pattern was consistent across all the Tuesdays I checked. Richard would arrive around 2:30, stay for 2 to 2.5 hours, then leave. Jennifer would depart shortly after, then return at her normal time. 2 different men, 2 different vehicles, 2 different days of the week. But the same pattern: arrive shortly after Jennifer, stay for hours, leave before she had to return to maintain her cover. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was running a precision-scheduled operation that would make an air traffic controller proud. I pushed back from my desk, my head spinning. 22 years. We'd been together for 22 years. We'd survived college poverty, entry-level jobs, the stress of buying our first house, the disappointment of failed fertility treatments, the decision to embrace life without children, the pandemic lockdown. We'd built a life together, and I thought it was a good one. When had it stopped being enough for her? I found myself studying the Thursday man more closely. Even in the grainy Zoom, I could see he was everything I wasn't. Young, fit, the kind of guy who probably had a six-pack and could run a marathon without breaking a sweat. Was that what Jennifer wanted? Someone who looked like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine instead of a middle-aged accountant whose main exercise was walking around looking for birds? And Richard, successful, powerful Richard with his expensive suits and different watch for each day of the week. He commanded rooms when he walked in, had that easy charisma that made people want to follow him. Nothing like quiet, steady Tom, who got excited about spreadsheets and bird identification. I spent the rest of the evening in a strange fog, mechanically going through the motions of normalcy. When Jennifer poked her head in to say goodnight, I managed to mumble something appropriate. When she asked if I was coming to bed, I told her I had some tax documents to review. "Don't stay up too late," she said, and I heard her footsteps heading to our bedroom. Our bedroom, where she'd probably been with Richard that very afternoon, with Athletic Thursday Guy 2 days later. The thought made me physically ill. I couldn't bring myself to join her that night. I dozed fitfully on the office couch, waking every hour with fresh waves of pain and anger. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed to see this for myself. I needed absolute confirmation before I destroyed everything we'd built. The next morning, Wednesday, I went through the usual routine. Shower, coffee, kiss Jennifer goodbye as she left for work. She seemed perfectly normal, chatting about her day's schedule, reminding me about dinner with her sister on Saturday. "Love you," she called as she headed out the door. "Love you too," I responded automatically, the words ash in my mouth. I called in sick to work, claiming a stomach bug. It wasn't entirely a lie. I'd been nauseous since the previous evening. Then I set up camp in my office with my laptop, watching the bird feeders live stream while diving deeper into the archived footage. What I found over the next several hours was worse than I'd imagined. It wasn't just Richard on Tuesdays and Jim Guy on Thursdays. There were others. On one Friday, March 1st, a red Mazda appeared at 2:45 p.m. The man who got out was carrying flowers and a bottle of wine. He stayed for 3 hours. Another Friday showed a green Subaru, though the angle made it hard to see the driver clearly. He'd only stayed an hour, but an hour was long enough. I created a spreadsheet, because of course I did. I'm an accountant, and this is how I process trauma. Dates, times, vehicle descriptions, duration of stays, identifying features of the visitors. The pattern was clear. Tuesdays for Richard, Thursdays for Jim Guy, occasional Fridays for what seemed to be a rotating cast. My wife hadn't just broken our marriage vows. She'd turned our home into a carefully scheduled assembly line of adultery. I was so absorbed in my horrible documentation project that I almost missed the notification on my phone. Another rare bird alert, this time for a scarlet tanager. On any other day, I would have been thrilled. Today, I barely glanced at the footage before dismissing it. By Thursday morning, I'd made my decision. I needed to catch her in the act. I needed to see it with my own eyes, not through the filtered lens of a camera designed to watch birds. I went to work as normal, pushing through the morning with grim determination. At lunch, I told my boss I had a dental emergency. A crown had come loose, and I'd managed to get a last-minute appointment. "Those are the worst," he said sympathetically. "Take the rest of the day if you need it." I drove to the parking garage across from our office building and waited until 1:45 p.m. Then I called an Uber, not wanting to risk having my car spotted in the neighborhood. The driver, a chatty retiree named Bill, tried to make conversation, but I could barely manage monosyllables. "You okay, buddy?" he asked as we got close to my neighborhood. "You look a little green." "Dental work," I mumbled. "Nervous about it." "Oh, I hear you. Had a root canal last year that nearly killed me. You want some gum? Might help with the nerves." I declined and had him drop me off 2 blocks from my house. I made my way through the Hendersons' backyard. Thank God they both worked, and their dog was apparently inside. From there, I could slip into my own garage through the side door. The garage was dim and smelled of motor oil and old paint cans. I positioned myself at the small window that overlooked our driveway, then pulled out my phone to watch the bird feeders live stream. Now I had multiple angles of surveillance, like some sort of demented security guard. 2:08 p.m., right on schedule, Jennifer's blue Honda pulled into view. I watched her get out, and my heart clenched despite everything. She looked beautiful. She was wearing the blue sundress I'd bought her for her birthday last year, the one with tiny flowers that brought out her eyes. Her hair was styled differently than it had been that morning. Had she gone to the salon during lunch? She paused at her car door, checking her reflection in the window, smoothing down the dress, adjusting the thin gold necklace I didn't recognize. When had she bought that? Or had someone else bought it for her? Then she walked toward the house with a spring in her step I hadn't seen in months. She looked happy, excited, alive in a way that made me realize how long it had been since she'd looked that way around me. 2:19 p.m. The black pickup truck arrived. Thursday meant gym guy. He parked behind Jennifer's car and got out in one fluid motion. Now that I could see him clearly, I understood the appeal even more. He was probably 30, 32 at most. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of arms that came from dedicated gym time and probably excellent genetics. His tank top showed off his physique without being too obvious about it. He was carrying a small gift bag, pink with ribbon handles. I waited 10 minutes, watching the house for any sign of movement. The blinds in our bedroom, were closed, but I could see shadows moving behind them. My stomach churned with rage and nausea. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped out of the garage and used my key to enter through the back door as quietly as possible. The house felt different somehow, like it belonged to strangers. There was music playing upstairs. John Legend, the same playlist Jennifer used to put on for our anniversary dinners. I could hear laughter drifting down the stairs. Jennifer's distinctive giggle mixed with a deeper male chuckle. They sounded so comfortable together, like old lovers who knew each other's rhythms. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and started recording. This was it. The moment of truth. The death of my marriage being documented with the same device I used to capture bird sightings. I climbed the stairs slowly, avoiding the creaky step third from the top, a habit from years of coming home late and not wanting to wake Jennifer. Ironic that I was using that knowledge now to catch her instead of protect her sleep. The master bedroom door was closed, but not latched. Through the gap, I could hear voices clearly. "Can't believe you remembered," Jennifer was saying, her voice warm with pleasure. "Of course I remembered," the man replied. 6 months since our first workout together. How could I forget the way you looked in those yoga pants?" She giggled again, and I heard the distinctive pop of a champagne cork. 6 months. She'd been doing this for at least 6 months. All those evenings she'd come home talking about how exhausting her workout had been, how the new trainer was really pushing her. It all took on a new meaning. "Miguel, you're too much," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Champagne at 2 in the afternoon. What will the neighbors think?" "Who cares what they think?" Miguel responded. "We're celebrating to 6 months of the best workouts of my life." They clinked glasses, and I'd heard enough. I raised my foot and kicked the door open, with all the force of 6 months of deception behind it. "Honey, I'm home!" The scene that greeted me was almost comically cliche. Jennifer was on our bed, our marital bed, wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Miguel was standing beside the bed, pouring champagne into 2 glasses, wearing nothing but black boxer briefs that left very little to the imagination. Jennifer's scream could have shattered windows. She scrambled for the sheets while Miguel dropped the champagne bottle, sending Dom Perignon, of course it was Dom Perignon, cascading across our hardwood floors. "Tom, what are you? You're supposed to be at work!" Her voice cracked between shock and indignation. I kept my phone up, recording everything. "And you're supposed to be at work, but the bird feeder says otherwise." Miguel was hopping on one foot, trying to pull on his jeans while maintaining some semblance of dignity. "Hey man, this isn't... She said you were separated." "Separated?" I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "Is that what she told you?" "No, Miguel, we're not separated. We're married. Have been for 12 years. But hey, don't feel special. You're just the Thursday appointment." "Thursday appointment?" Miguel stopped mid-hop, his jeans halfway up his legs. "Oh, she didn't mention the rotation system?" I pulled out my phone, navigating to the spreadsheet I'd created. "See, You've got Thursdays. Very consistent, 2:19 p.m. arrival, like clockwork. But Tuesdays, those belong to Richard Sterling. You know, her boss? The married guy with 2 kids? Jennifer had managed to wrap herself in the sheet, her face cycling from shocked white to defensive red. You've been spying on me. I've been watching birds, I shouted, surprising myself with the volume. You just happened to be scheduling your affairs in the background. The app cataloged everything. Look. I pulled up the footage on my phone, showing them the interface. Northern Cardinal at 2:15. Jennifer arrives at 2:18. Adultery begins at approximately 2:30. It's all here, time-stamped and cloud-stored. Miguel's face was a study in emotions, confusion, anger, disgust. He looked at Jennifer. There are others? Oh, buddy, I said with false sympathy. You really thought you were special? Hate to break it to you, but you're just part of a very well-organized schedule. Here, look. I showed him the spreadsheet on my phone. See? Very organized. She could teach a masterclass in time management. How to juggle multiple affairs while maintaining a marriage, a PowerPoint presentation by Jennifer Patterson. This is insane, Miguel muttered, finally getting his jeans buttoned. You told me you were in a dead marriage, that you hadn't been with your husband in months. Well, that part might be true, I said bitterly. Hard to be intimate with your husband when you're exhausting yourself with your rotating cast of lovers. Miguel grabbed his shirt from the floor. I noticed it was inside out in his haste. I'm out of here. Out of... This is too messed up for me. Don't forget, same time next Thursday, I called after him. The birds will be watching. Jennifer tried to follow him. Miguel, wait! But I stepped in front of her. Oh no, you don't get to chase after your boy toy. We're not done here. She whirled on me, tears streaming down her face. How could you humiliate me like this? How could I... Are you serious right now? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been turning our home into a brothel for 6 months, and you're mad that I found out? It's not what you think. Stop. Just stop. I held up my hand. I have 30 days of video evidence, multiple men, clear patterns, scheduled appointments. Don't insult both of us by trying to explain this away. I walked to our bedroom window and threw it open. The Hendersons were in their backyard, and I could see Mrs. Chen watering her roses next door. Perfect. Hey, neighbors, I shouted at the top of my lungs. Fun fact! Fun. My smart bird feeder caught my wife with multiple men. Jennifer lunged for me. Tom, stop, please! Why? I dodged her grab. You didn't care about the neighbors when you were running your afternoon business. Mrs. Chen, did you know every Tuesday and Thursday there's a parade of strange cars at our house? Check your Ring camera. I could see curtains moving in windows up and down the street. Mr. Henderson had put down his rake and was staring openly. Mrs. Chen had dropped her watering can. The painted bunting wasn't the only rare sighting this week, I continued. Though my wife seems to be pretty common. Stop it, Jennifer sobbed, collapsing on the bed. Please, just stop. Part of me, the part that still remembered loving her, felt a twinge of sympathy. But the larger part, the part that had just watched her toast to 6 months of deception with champagne in our bed, felt only cold satisfaction. I pulled out my phone again and did something I'd been planning since the night before. During my research, I'd found contact information for all the players in Jennifer's little drama. LinkedIn was particularly helpful for professional details, and Jennifer's tendency to leave her phone unlocked on the nightstand had filled in the rest. I created a group text with 4 numbers. Richard Sterling, Miguel the fitness enthusiast, the man with the red Mazda, David, according to Jennifer's Instagram tags, and another frequently contacted number that matched the timing of the Friday visits. Gentlemen, I typed, this is Tom Patterson, Jennifer's husband. You've all been visiting my wife at our home while I'm at work. I have comprehensive bird feeder footage of all of you, complete with license plates and timestamps. Richard on Tuesdays, Miguel on Thursdays, David and friend on occasional Fridays. You might want to coordinate schedules better to avoid awkward overlaps. Or perhaps discuss STD testing protocols. I hit send, then added Jennifer's number to the group. Or perhaps discuss this amongst yourselves. May the best man win, or in this case, may the least diseased man win. The phones started exploding immediately. Jennifer's phone, still on the dresser where she'd left it, lit up like a Christmas tree. Multiple notifications, texts coming in rapid fire. She scrambled for it, still clutching the sheet, her face a mask of horror as she read the messages. Miguel. WTF, Jennifer? You said you were separated. Richard. Who else is in this chat? Jennifer, call me immediately. David. Is this some kind of joke? Unknown number. Delete my number from this thread immediately. My lawyer will be in contact. More messages poured in. Miguel was demanding answers. Richard was trying to do damage control. David seemed to be having a full-blown panic attack via text. You've ruined everything, Jennifer wailed, watching her carefully constructed house of cards collapse in real time. I ruined everything? I laughed incredulously. That's rich. Really rich. You know what? Let's make this even more educational. I pulled up Richard Sterling's contact information on my laptop. His wife Margaret's social media had been easy to find. She was one of those Facebook oversharers who posted every detail of their perfect family life. Recent posts included photos from their son's lacrosse tournament and their daughter's piano recital. What are you doing? Jennifer asked, panic rising in her voice as she saw me typing. Just sharing the bird watching love, I said, attaching several video clips to a Facebook message. I think Margaret would love to see the footage of rare birds at our feeder, especially the ones that arrive in a silver BMW every Tuesday at 2:30. Tom, no! His kids! Think about his kids! Did you think about his kids when you were screwing him in our bed? Did Richard think about them? Or was he too busy thinking with his, please? She actually got on her knees, still wrapped in the sheet. I'll do anything. Just don't destroy other people's lives. Other people's lives? I stood up, towering over her. What about my life? What about our life? 12 years, Jennifer. 12 years. And you threw it away for what? Some afternoon excitement? A younger guy with abs? A boss who could advance your career? It wasn't like that, she whispered. Then what was it like? Please, enlighten me. Explain how you accidentally scheduled multiple affairs with the precision of a Swiss watch. My finger hovered over the send button. Margaret Sterling deserved to know what her husband was doing during those long Tuesday meetings. But Jennifer was right about one thing. The kids didn't deserve to have their lives blown up because their father couldn't keep it in his pants. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. You get 5 minutes to warn Richard. After that, I send everything to Margaret. And I mean everything. Videos, timestamps, the works. Jennifer dove for her phone, frantically typing. I could see Richard calling immediately, but she declined it and kept typing. Probably telling him to check his messages, to call his wife, to do something to prepare for the storm that was coming. While she was distracted, I opened my laptop and pulled up the gym's Facebook page. Miguel had been easy to identify. He was featured in several promotional posts as one of their star trainers. Transform your body and your life with Miguel, one post proclaimed. I typed out a review. Great trainers! Miguel gives very personal attention to married women. Ask about his Thursday afternoon specials. Just make sure your spouse is at work first. 5 stars for discretion, usually. Tom, please, Jennifer begged, seeing what I was doing. Miguel doesn't deserve this. He didn't know. He knew you were married. You're wearing your wedding ring in half the videos. He made a choice. I hit post. My phone rang. Richard Sterling. I answered on speaker. Richard, buddy, how's it going? Tom, listen, we need to talk man to man. Man to man? Is that what you were doing with my wife? Having a man-to-man conversation? In my bed? Every Tuesday at 2:30? Jennifer reached for the phone, but I pulled it away. It's not. Look, it just happened. 27 times in the past 30 days is not just happened, Richard. That's a commitment. That's more reliable than the Postal Service. Rain or shine, Richard Sterling delivers, usually between 2:30 and 4:45 p.m. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You saw an opportunity with a subordinate and you took it. Real classy, by the way. Nothing says professional like sleeping with your direct reports. I'm sure HR will love hearing about this. Now wait a minute. No, you wait a minute. You have exactly 4 minutes left to call your wife before I send her everything. And I mean everything, Richard. Every Tuesday, every arrival, every departure, all in crystal clear 4K resolution. The bird feeder really does capture amazing detail. You can even see your bald spot in some of the shots. Might want to work on that comb over. I hung up. The group text was still going strong. Miguel was sharing screenshots of his conversations with Jennifer, proving she'd told him she was separated. David was insisting he'd only been there twice and didn't know about the others. The unknown number had gone silent after the lawyer threat. Jennifer's phone rang again. Her mother this time. Oh, good, I said. Your mother's calling. Should I answer? Tell her about your entrepreneurial spirit? How you've been running a home-based business? Please, Jennifer whispered. Not my mother. I considered it. Joan had always liked me, said I was the stable, reliable type her daughter needed. But even in my rage, there were limits. Her mother didn't need to know the sordid details. You'll tell her yourself, I said. When you explain why we're getting divorced. The word hung in the air between us like a physical presence. Divorced. The end of everything we'd built together. Jennifer's face crumpled. Tom, please, can't we talk about this? Go to counseling? Work through it? Work through it! I laughed bitterly. Which part should we work through first? The Tuesday affairs? The Thursday appointments? The Friday wild cards? Or should we start with the 6 months of lies? I made mistakes. Mistakes? A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is missing an anniversary. This? I gestured around our bedroom, at the champagne staining the floor, the rumpled sheets, the lingerie she'd bought for another man. This is a calculated betrayal. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a strange, productive fury. While Jennifer fielded increasingly frantic calls and texts from her various paramours, I methodically documented everything. I uploaded all the footage to multiple cloud services. I created a comprehensive timeline. I even put together a PowerPoint presentation, complete with graphs showing the frequency of visits and a pie chart breaking down time allocation by affair partner. Seriously? Jennifer said, looking at my screen. A pie chart? I'm an accountant, I shrugged. This is how I process trauma. Want to see the trend analysis? Visits were increasing in frequency over time. You were scaling up your operation. She sank into a chair, still wearing the sheet like a toga. I never meant for it to go this far. Which part? The first affair? The second? The third? Or the sophisticated scheduling system to manage them all? All of it, she whispered. It started with Richard. Things were stressful at work. You were always focused on your birds or your spreadsheets. Don't you dare blame the birds. I'm not blaming anyone but myself. I'm just trying to explain. Richard paid attention to me, made me feel desired again, appreciated. And then after that started, I felt so guilty that I threw myself into working out, trying to make myself feel better. That's where I met Miguel. And David? Where'd you collect him? Wine tasting event for work. He's a vendor. And the fourth guy, the one threatening lawyers? She looked away. Someone I knew from before we were married. An ex? You were seeing an ex? Only a few times. It wasn't. If you say it wasn't what I think, I swear, I'll post this entire PowerPoint on LinkedIn and tag your company. She fell silent. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would normally have had me reaching for my binoculars to catch the evening bird activity, I made my final preparations. I'd already contacted a divorce lawyer, Bill Harrison, recommended by someone in my birding group who'd mentioned his own divorce during a particularly slow hawk watch. I'd documented everything meticulously, backed up in multiple locations. I'd also changed all my passwords, removed Jennifer from joint accounts, and canceled all the credit cards where I was the primary holder. "Where am I supposed to go?" Jennifer asked as I handed her a suitcase I'd packed with some of her clothes. "I don't care. Richard's house, Miguel's apartment, maybe they can work out a schedule. You're good at those." "Tom, please, it's my home too." It was your home. You turned it into something else. I can't look at our bedroom without seeing them. Multiple thems. So no, you can't stay here. This isn't legal. You can't just kick me out." "You're right," I admitted. "Legally, you have every right to stay. But morally? Do you really want to be here right now? With me? Knowing what I know? Seeing the disgust in my eyes every time I look at you?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "Or," I continued, "you can leave voluntarily. Stay with a friend, your sister, one of your boyfriends. I don't care. But if you stay here, I promise I will make every moment as uncomfortable as humanly possible. Your choice." She stood at the door with her suitcase, mascara streaking down her cheeks in black rivers. For a moment, she looked like the girl I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. Young, vulnerable, lost. The girl who'd laughed at my nerdy accounting jokes, who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd cried with me when the fertility treatments failed. "I loved you," she said softly. "No," I replied, my voice steady despite the pain threatening to crack it. "You loved the stability I provided, the nice house for your afternoon activities, the steady income that let you buy lingerie for other men, the reliable husband who was too distracted by his hobbies to notice your schedule. But that wasn't love, Jennifer. That was convenience." "That's not true. I did love you. I do love you. You have a funny way of showing it. People are complex, Tom. Hearts are complex. It's possible to love someone and still schedule multiple affairs with the efficiency of a Fortune 500 CEO? No, Jennifer. That's not complexity. That's cruelty." She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. What was there to say? We both knew there were no words that could undo what had been done, no explanation that could justify the betrayal. After she left, I sat in my kitchen, staring out at the bird feeder. The evening visitors were arriving, a pair of cardinals sharing seeds, the male selecting the best ones and offering them to his mate. They'd be together until death, faithful through all seasons. No Tuesday appointments, no Thursday arrangements. Just two birds, committed to each other and their territory. My phone buzzed. A text from my birding group. "Tom, is it true about the painted bunting? Incredible sighting." I almost laughed. In all the drama, I'd forgotten about the bird that started it all. The rare, beautiful creature that had inadvertently exposed the ugly truth of my marriage. I hadn't even posted about it, hadn't shared the joy of the sighting with my community. "Yes," I texted back. "Confirmed sighting. The painted bunting was real. Everything else in my life apparently was not." The responses came quickly. "You okay, Tom? That sounds heavy. Want to talk? Beer? I'm buying." I smiled despite everything. My marriage was over. My life was in shambles, but I had a community of people who cared about me. People who got excited about rare birds and understood the joy of a good sighting. People who were real. "Beer sounds good," I typed. "Fair warning, I have a story that you won't believe." The divorce proceedings moved with surprising speed. Jennifer didn't contest anything. How could she, with the mountain of evidence I'd accumulated? The bird feeder footage was particularly damning, time-stamped and high definition, showing a clear pattern of infidelity that no judge could ignore. My lawyer, Bill Harrison, had actually laughed out loud when I presented my documentation. "In 30 years of practice," he said, wiping tears from his eyes, "I've never seen adultery documented by wildlife photography equipment. This is extraordinary." "I'm nothing if not thorough," I said. "Thorough? Tom, you've got spreadsheets, flowcharts, A PowerPoint presentation. If all my clients were this organized, I could retire early. The meeting with Jennifer's lawyer was almost comical. He tried to argue invasion of privacy, but that fell apart quickly. "Mr. Patterson," he said, adjusting his glasses nervously, "you installed a camera specifically to surveil your wife." "Objection," Bill interrupted. "My client installed a bird identification system on his own property, pointing at his own bird feeder. The fact that it incidentally captured the driveway is irrelevant. He has every right to review footage from his own security equipment." "It's not security equipment," Jennifer's lawyer protested. "It's a bird feeder." "A bird feeder with a camera," Bill countered. "On his property, recording his property. Unless you're suggesting that Mrs. Patterson had a reasonable expectation of privacy while conducting affairs in the marital home." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Well, no, but then I don't see the issue. My client was bird watching. Your client was, well, the footage speaks for itself." When we finally got before the judge, the Honorable Patricia Chen, who in a twist of cosmic irony turned out to be an amateur birder herself, the proceedings took on an almost surreal quality. "Mr. Patterson," Judge Chen said, reviewing the evidence with barely concealed amusement, "am I to understand that you discovered your wife's activities while attempting to photograph birds?" "Yes, Your Honor. The camera system was designed to identify and catalog avian visitors to my yard. It also happened to capture vehicular traffic and human mating behaviors." A snort of laughter came from somewhere in the gallery. The judge shot a stern look in that direction, but I could see her lips twitching. "And this system captured how many different individuals visiting your home?" "4 confirmed individuals, Your Honor, not counting my wife. The system is very precise. It logs arrival times, departure times, vehicle descriptions, and license plates. I've prepared a summary chart if you'd like to review it." "That won't be necessary," Judge Chen said quickly, though I caught her glancing at the chart with interest. "The evidence is quite clear." Jennifer's lawyer made one last attempt. "Your Honor, we'd like to point out that my client's behavior, while admittedly inappropriate, does not necessarily warrant such a dramatic division of assets." "Counselor," the judge interrupted, "your client conducted multiple affairs in the marital home on a scheduled basis for at least 6 months. The level of deception and planning involved is significant. I've seen the evidence. Unless you have something compelling to add?" He didn't. The settlement was swift and decidedly in my favor. I kept the house, most of our assets, and Jennifer got her car, personal belongings, and a fraction of our savings. She also got a reputation that followed her everywhere. The story had spread through our social circles like wildfire. "The bird feeder divorce," people called it. Someone even created a meme that went modestly viral. A picture of a bird feeder with the caption, "Came for the birds, stayed for the drama." Richard Sterling's life imploded spectacularly. Margaret had received my message, and, unlike Jennifer, she hadn't been willing to forgive. Their divorce was brutal and public. She took half of everything plus generous alimony and full custody of the kids. Richard was quietly let go from Jennifer's company. Turns out the board of directors frowned upon VPs who used their positions to seduce subordinates. Miguel disappeared from the gym entirely. I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to another city, spooked by the whole experience and the damage to his professional reputation. The gym had scrubbed him from all their promotional materials within a week of my review. David the wine vendor lost several major accounts when the story circulated in his professional circles. Turns out businesses prefer vendors who maintain professional boundaries with clients. The fourth man, Jennifer's ex, managed to stay mostly anonymous, though his lawyer did send me a strongly worded cease and desist letter. I ignored it. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, after all. As for Jennifer, she struggled to find work in our city. The marketing world was surprisingly small and incestuous, and the story of the woman who got caught cheating by a bird feeder was too juicy not to share. Her LinkedIn profile quietly disappeared, then reappeared a few months later, showing a new job in Portland. about as far away as she could get while staying on the same coast. The bird feeder company reached out to me after my review of their product went viral. Their marketing manager, a cheerful woman named Sandra, called me personally. "Mr. Patterson, we're so sorry to hear about your situation," she said carefully. "However, we're thrilled that our product performed so well. The image quality in your, evidence was remarkable." "It really is an excellent camera system," I agreed. "The AI identification is spot on, and the motion detection is incredibly sensitive." "Yes, well, about that. Our legal team has some concerns about marketing the product as a surveillance device. But we'd love to offer you our newest model, which has even better features. Complimentary, of course. And perhaps a lifetime supply of our premium bird seed blend? Are you bribing me not to mention the security features in future reviews?" "Not at all," she said quickly. "We're simply showing appreciation for a valued customer who provided very detailed feedback. Your review has actually driven significant traffic to our site. Apparently, many people are interested in bird watching now." I accepted their offer. The new camera was even better than the original, with features like song identification, behavioral analysis, and health assessment of individual birds. It also, I noticed, had a new privacy mode that could blur out background elements while keeping the feeder in focus. The manual specifically mentioned this feature, with a carefully worded note about focusing on wildlife while respecting the privacy of human subjects who may inadvertently appear in frame. I became something of a celebrity in the birding community. At the monthly meeting of the Michigan Audubon Society, people who had previously ignored me suddenly wanted to hear my story. "Is it true?" asked Harold, a veteran birder who'd been photographing birds since the 1970s. "You really caught her with the smart feeder?" "Every sordid detail," I confirmed, time-stamped and cloud-backed. "That's the most interesting use of birding equipment I've ever heard," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "I once used my telephoto lens to catch my neighbor dumping oil in the storm drain, but this is next level." Some in the community were sympathetic. Others found it hilarious. A few of the single women in the group started paying more attention to me, though I wasn't ready for that yet. My heart was still too raw, too suspicious of any romantic overture. Dr. Sarah Chen, a ornithologist from the university who sometimes attended our meetings, approached me after one gathering. "I'm sorry about your marriage," she said quietly. "But I have to ask, did you really create a PowerPoint presentation of the evidence?" "Complete with graphs and statistical analysis," I admitted. "It's how I process things." She smiled. "That's the most accountant thing I've ever heard. Would you consider presenting it at our next meeting? From a data collection standpoint, it's actually quite impressive. We could focus on the methodology rather than the, subject matter." "You want me to present my divorce evidence to a birding group?" "Think of it as a case study in unintended data collection. How observation tools meant for one purpose can capture unexpected information. It's actually relevant to some of the citizen science projects we're running." I did eventually give that presentation, though heavily sanitized and focused on the technical aspects. It was surprisingly well received. Someone even suggested I write a paper on incidental data collection in citizen science projects, though I declined. Some stories didn't need to be academically preserved. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in my backyard on a perfect May morning, watching the spring migration through my binoculars. The new camera system was performing beautifully, capturing behavioral details I'd never noticed before. I'd identified 37 species so far that morning, including a rare cerulean warbler that had caused quite a stir in the online birding community. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Tom, it's Jennifer. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did, why I threw away the best thing in my life for meaningless flings. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for breaking your heart. For breaking us. I hope you're finding peace with your birds. You deserve happiness." I stared at the text for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond with something cutting, to twist the knife a little deeper, to tell her about the cerulean warbler, about how my life had actually improved without her lies and deception. But what was the point? The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I was finally approaching indifference. I deleted the text without responding and raised my binoculars. A flash of blue caught my eye, an indigo bunting, almost as beautiful as the painted bunting that had started this whole mess. I watched it feed, admiring its vibrant plumage, its delicate movements. Birds were simple. They followed patterns, migrations, instincts. They didn't lie or cheat or create elaborate deceptions. When they mated, it was straightforward, either for life or for a season, but always honest about it. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my birding group chat. Someone had spotted a scarlet tanager at the nature preserve. Rare for our area, especially this late in the season. On my way, I typed, already gathering my gear. Life went on. Birds migrated, seasons changed, and gradually, wounds healed. I found peace in the simple rhythm of observation, in the honest beauty of nature, in the community of people who shared my passion. I never did make it to Costa Rica. That had been a dream Jennifer and I shared, and it felt tainted now. But I discovered something better. That sometimes the most extraordinary sightings happen in your own backyard. You just have to be watching. And I was always watching now. Through my binoculars, through my camera, through eyes open to the truth that the world could be both beautiful and cruel, often at the same time. The painted bunting never returned to my feeder. Like my marriage, it had been a rare, fleeting thing that appeared just long enough to change everything. But the regular visitors, the cardinals, blue jays, nuthatches, and woodpeckers, they came every day. Faithful, reliable, following their natural patterns without deception. I'd expanded my bird watching setup considerably. 3 more feeders now dotted my yard, each designed to attract different species. A heated bird bath provided water through winter. Native plants replaced the manicured lawn Jennifer had insisted on, creating habitat for both birds and the insects they fed on. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, despite the empty spaces where Jennifer's things had been. I'd turned her home office into a proper birding room, with charts of migration patterns on the walls, shelves full of field guides, and a computer setup for processing photos and videos. The bedroom. Well, I'd bought an entirely new bedroom set. Some ghosts were best exorcised completely. Bill Harrison, my lawyer, had become an unexpected friend. He'd taken up birding himself after hearing my story, and we often met for early morning bird walks. You know, he said one morning, as we watched a great blue heron fishing in the wetlands. In all my years of practice, yours is still the most interesting divorce I've handled. Glad I could provide entertainment, I said dryly. That's not what I mean. Most divorces are messy, angry, bitter affairs. Yours was clinical, organized. You approached it like an accounting problem to be solved. It was a problem to be solved, I pointed out. The marriage was broken. No amount of counseling could fix what she did. So I documented everything, protected my assets, and executed a clean separation. Just like closing a bad account. But it was more than that, wasn't it? It was your life. Your heart. I lowered my binoculars, considering his words. Of course it was. But what was the alternative? Fall apart? Wallow in misery? Make stupid emotional decisions? That wouldn't have changed what happened. It would only have made the aftermath worse. Some people would say you're repressing your emotions. Some people haven't been betrayed by someone they trusted for 22 years, I countered. I dealt with it in my own way. The birds helped. Having something beautiful and honest to focus on, something that made sense. It kept me sane. And now I'm actually happy, I said, surprised to realize it was true. Happier than I was in the last years of my marriage. I have my birds, my community, my peace. No more wondering if she's really at work. No more feeling like I'm not enough. No more lies. A year after the divorce, I got an unexpected call. It was from a producer at a true crime podcast network. They wanted to do an episode on the bird feeder divorce. It's not true crime, I protested. Nobody died. No laws were broken. But it's such a unique story, the producer, Amy, insisted. The intersection of technology and infidelity. The way modern surveillance equipment designed for innocent purposes can reveal dark secrets. Plus, the birding angle gives it a quirky twist that our audience would love. I don't know. We'd be very respectful. Focus on the technology aspect, the unexpected consequences of our connected world, and we'd pay you for your participation. In the end, I agreed, mostly because they offered to make a donation to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in my name. The interview was strange, retelling the story to a microphone in my home office while looking at my bird charts. So, you never suspected anything? Amy asked. Not a thing. I trusted her completely. Maybe that was naive, but I don't believe you can have a real marriage without trust. And the bird feeder changed everything. The bird feeder revealed everything, I corrected. The affairs were already happening, had been for at least 6 months. The technology just exposed what was already there. Do you think she wanted to get caught? Some psychologists say people who have affairs often unconsciously leave clues. I thought about it. I don't know. I don't think she expected the bird feeder to have such a wide angle. Or maybe she just got careless, too confident in her scheduling. Does it matter? The result is the same. How do you feel about her now? I nothing her, I said, borrowing a phrase from Mad Men. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. I hope she's getting help, working on whatever led her to make those choices. But it's not my concern anymore. The podcast episode aired 2 months later. The Birds and the Bees, A Modern Betrayal, became one of their most downloaded episodes. I started getting emails from strangers, some supportive, some critical, some sharing their own stories of betrayal discovered through unexpected means. One email stood out. It was from Margaret Sterling, Richard's ex-wife. Tom, I wanted to thank you for sending me that footage. It was devastating at the time, but it was the truth I needed to see. Richard had been gaslighting me for months, making me think I was paranoid for suspecting something. Your evidence set me free. I'm doing well now. The kids are adjusting. I've taken up birding myself. There's something healing about watching creatures who operate on pure instinct, without deception. I bought one of those smart feeders. So far, it's only captured birds, thank God. I heard through mutual friends that Richard and Jennifer didn't last. Apparently, when the excitement of sneaking around was gone, they discovered they didn't actually like each other much. I find that fitting somehow. Wishing you peace and many rare sightings. Margaret. I reread the email several times. There was vindication in knowing that Richard and Jennifer's affair had crumbled once exposed to daylight. All that destruction for something that couldn't even survive without secrecy. I wrote back, sharing some tips for attracting different bird species and recommending some good birding spots in her area. We struck up a correspondence. Not romantic, just two people who'd been betrayed by the same pair, finding common ground in birds and recovery. 2 years post-divorce, I achieved something of a birding milestone. I'd photographed 300 species in Michigan, including several rare vagrants that had caused minor sensations in the birding community. My yard had become a known hotspot, with other birders occasionally asking permission to visit during migration seasons. The famous Patterson Yard, they'd say, home of the painted bunting sighting. They meant the bird, of course. Most of the newer members didn't know the full story. To them, I was just Tom, the guy with the amazing yard list and the high-tech setup who was always willing to share sightings and advice. Dr. Sarah Chen had become a regular birding companion. We'd started meeting for weekend trips to various hotspots around the state. She was brilliant, funny, and passionate about conservation. She also knew my story and never pushed for anything more than friendship, which I appreciated. You know, she said one day as we watched sandhill cranes gathering in a field, you've never shown me the famous PowerPoint. I laughed. It's not that interesting, just charts and timelines. I don't believe that for a second. Anyone who can create a comprehensive spreadsheet of their spouse's affairs has a mind for data visualization that I need to see. You really want to see my divorce evidence? I want to see how an accountant's mind processes trauma, she said. It's actually fascinating from a psychological perspective. Most people respond to betrayal with pure emotion. You responded with data analysis. That evening, I showed her the presentation. She studied it with the same intensity she brought to analyzing migration patterns. This is incredible, she said finally. Horrible, obviously, but the methodology is sound. You could publish this as a case study in data collection. I think I'll pass on academic fame for documenting my wife's affairs. Ex-wife, she corrected gently. And I understand. But Tom, this shows something important about you. When your world fell apart, you didn't fall apart with it. You found a way to make sense of chaos. That's a rare gift. Or a coping mechanism, I suggested. Maybe both, she agreed. But it worked. You're here, you're whole, and you're building a new life. That's more than many people manage after betrayal like that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the cranes prepare for their evening flight to roost. There was something deeply reassuring about their ancient patterns, the way they'd been gathering in these same fields for thousands of years. Can I ask you something? Sarah said eventually. Do you think you'll ever trust someone again? Romantically, I mean. I considered the question. I don't know. I trusted Jennifer completely, and look how that turned out. But I also know that living in fear of betrayal is no way to live. Maybe someday. When the right person comes along. The right person, she repeated softly. How will you know? I suppose they'll have to be as reliable as the birds, I said, half joking. Show up when they're supposed to. No hidden migrations. No secret territories. That's a high bar. Is it? It seems like basic decency to me. 3 years after the painted bunting changed my life, I was preparing for my biggest birding adventure yet. I'd been invited to join a research expedition to Colombia, assisting with a bird survey in areas that had been inaccessible during decades of conflict. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to see species I'd only dreamed of, to contribute to important conservation work, to push my life list into the stratosphere. The invitation had come through Sarah, who was co-leading the expedition. We'd grown closer over the past year, our friendship deepening through countless hours in the field. She understood my passion for birds, my need for order and documentation, my still healing heart. You sure you want me along? I'd asked when she first mentioned it. I'm just an amateur with a good camera. You're one of the most dedicated field observers I know, she'd countered. Your documentation skills are exceptional. Plus, you need this. When was the last time you did something just for pure joy? She was right. Since the divorce, I'd rebuilt my life carefully, methodically, but always with one eye on security, on protecting myself. This trip would be different, a leap into the unknown, guided only by the promise of birds and discovery. The week before departure, I was doing final preparations when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Jennifer standing on my porch, looking older and somehow smaller than I remembered. Hello, Tom. Jennifer. I didn't invite her in. What are you doing here? I heard about your trip to Colombia from mutual friends. I wanted to, I don't know, wish you well, I guess. You could have sent a text. You didn't respond to the last one. There was nothing to say. She nodded, accepting that. I also wanted to give you this. She held out a small wrapped package. I found it when I was packing up my storage unit. Thought you should have it. I took the package reluctantly. Through the paper, I could feel the shape of a book. It's your father's field guide, she explained. The one he gave you when you graduated college. You lent it to me for that work trip to Arizona, remember? I never gave it back. I'm sorry. I unwrapped it slowly. Sure enough, it was Dad's old Peterson guide, worn and annotated in his careful handwriting. I'd thought it was lost years ago. Thank you, I said stiffly. Tom, She paused, seeming to gather herself. I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. What I did was unforgivable. I destroyed something beautiful for cheap thrills and ego boosts. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I made those choices, why I threw away the best thing in my life. Jennifer, please let me finish. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know that I understand the magnitude of what I did. And I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for every lie, every betrayal, every moment I chose excitement over love. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for over 2 decades and felt, not nothing exactly, but something close to pity. She looked hollow, like she'd been carved out from the inside. I hope you find peace, I said finally. I hope the therapy helps. But Jennifer, you need to understand. We're done. There's no path back. What you broke can't be fixed. I know, she whispered. I know, I wanted to see you happy. And you look happy. The birds, the trip, the life you've built. It suits you. It does, I agreed. I am happy. Happier than I was pretending everything was fine while you were. I stopped, took a breath. It doesn't matter anymore. Thank you for returning the book. Have a good life, Jennifer. I closed the door gently but firmly. Through the window, I watched her walk back to her car. Not the blue Honda, I noticed, but something newer and more modest. She sat there for a moment before driving away. I knew I'd never see her again. That night, I flipped through Dad's field guide, smiling at his notes. Saw this beauty at Meiji Marsh, May 1987, next to a Blackburnian warbler. Your mother's favorite by the cardinal. Lifebird hash 500! Beside a painted bunting, the same species that had revealed my wife's betrayal. The Colombia trip was everything I'd hoped and more. We spent 3 weeks in cloud forests and river valleys, documenting species that few birders had ever seen. My life list exploded. Toucans and tanagers, ant pittas and manakins, hummingbirds that defied description. Every day brought new wonders, new challenges, new reasons to be grateful for this passion that had saved me. Sarah and I worked well together, falling into easy rhythms of observation and documentation. She handled the scientific data while I managed the photography and detailed behavioral notes. In the evenings, we'd review the day's sightings over simple meals, planning the next day's routes. You know, she said one evening as we watched spectacled bears from our research station, you're different here. More relaxed. More like yourself, I think. It's hard to be uptight when you're surrounded by this. I gestured at the incredible landscape, the cacophony of bird calls, the sheer aliveness of everything. Or maybe it's because you're not looking over your shoulder anymore, not waiting for the other shoe to drop. She was right. For the first time in years, I felt truly present, not constantly checking for signs of deception or betrayal. The birds didn't lie. The forest didn't deceive. There was honesty in nature that I'd forgotten existed in the human world. On our last night, as we compiled our final species list, 287 species documented, including 3 that were possibly new to science, Sarah surprised me. I have a confession, she said. I didn't invite you on this trip just for your documentation skills. My guard went up immediately. Oh? I invited you because I've been falling for you for the past year, and I thought being in the field together for 3 weeks would either cure me of it or show me if there was something real there. I stared at her, speechless. I know you're not ready, she continued quickly. I know trust doesn't come easily after what you've been through. But I wanted to be honest with you. No hidden agendas, no secret feelings. Just truth. Sarah, You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. Whatever happens or doesn't happen, I value our friendship too much to let unspoken feelings poison it. We can pretend this conversation never happened if you want. But I found I didn't want to pretend. I was tired of pretending. Tired of protecting myself so carefully that I missed the possibility of something real. What if we didn't pretend? I said slowly. What if we just saw what happened? Like watching for birds, patient, observant, no assumptions? She smiled, and it was like watching the sun break through cloud forest mist. I'm very good at patient observation. I know you are. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't need to. But something shifted between us. A recognition that perhaps trust could be rebuilt, that perhaps not everyone operated on hidden schedules and secret agendas, that perhaps some people, like some birds, simply were what they appeared to be. The flight home was bittersweet. Part of me wanted to stay in Colombia forever, in that honest place where birds sang their true names and people spoke their true feelings. But I also felt ready to return to my life, to integrate what I'd learned in the forest with what I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. My yard seemed smaller after the vast forests of Colombia, but no less precious. The familiar birds greeted me like old friends, the cardinals, the blue jays, the nuthatches that walked upside down with such confidence. The smart feeder was still functioning perfectly, cataloging visitors with mechanical precision. I downloaded the footage from my absence, curious what I'd missed. The usual suspects mostly, but there, on Tuesday at 2:17 p.m., a flash of unmistakable color. Another painted bunting, or perhaps the same one, returning after 3 years. I watched the footage repeatedly, marveling at the timing. Tuesday afternoon, the same window when Jennifer had entertained Richard. But this time, the visitor was exactly what it appeared to be. A beautiful bird, nothing more, nothing less. I called Sarah. You'll never guess what showed up while we were gone. Based on your voice, something good. Cerulean warbler? Golden winged? Painted bunting? Tuesday at 2:17. There was a pause. The same time as... Within minutes. The universe has a sense of humor. Or maybe it's offering a do-over. A chance to associate that time with something beautiful instead of something painful. I like that interpretation. Want company for your next Tuesday afternoon watch? I'd like that, I said, and meant it. 6 months later, Sarah and I were officially together, taking it slow but steady, like a careful approach to a skittish bird. She had her own place still. We both valued independence too much to rush into cohabitation. But she spent weekends at my house, and we'd turned birdwatching into a shared passion that went beyond professional collaboration. You know what I appreciate most? She told me one morning as we watched sunrise from my deck. You don't check my phone. You don't question where I've been. Even after everything, you're choosing to trust. Trust, but verify, I joked, gesturing at the smart feeder. I've got cameras everywhere. That's not why you have them, though. You have them for the birds. True, although it's nice to know they're there, just in case any rare species show up. She laughed. Tom Patterson, are you calling me a rare species? The rarest, I said, pulling her closer. One of a kind. Definitely worth documenting. The bird feeder company eventually sent me their newest model, one with AI so advanced it could identify individual birds, track their health over time, and even predict migration patterns based on subtle behavioral changes. They included a note, for our most famous customer, may it bring you joy and only happy surprises. I installed it next to the original, creating a comprehensive monitoring station that would make any researcher jealous. The data I collected contributed to several citizen science projects, including a study on how urban bird populations were adapting to climate change. The old feeder, the one that had changed everything, still functioned perfectly. I thought about retiring it sometimes, putting it away as a reminder of a painful chapter. But then I'd see the footage of that first painted bunting, remember how beauty and betrayal had arrived on the same afternoon, and decide to let it keep watching. History doesn't disappear just because we wish it would. Better to acknowledge it, learn from it, and keep observing. My life list grew steadily. 400 species in North America, then 500, then beyond. Each new bird was a small victory, a reminder that the world still held wonders, that patience and observation could reveal extraordinary things. Sarah and I traveled to new birding destinations together, building shared memories to overlay the old, painful ones. The PowerPoint presentation remained on my computer, unopened for months at a time. Occasionally, I'd look at it, marveling at the person I'd been. So systematic in documenting betrayal, turning pain into data points. It seemed like something created by a stranger now, someone who'd needed order to make sense of chaos. You should delete it, Sarah suggested once, seeing it in my files. Maybe someday, I said. But not yet. It's part of the story. The whole story. The story of how you became who you are now. The story of how a bird feeder saved my life, or at least showed me what my life really was so I could build a better one. Years passed. Seasons changed. Birds migrated and returned. I watched it all through high-definition cameras and careful observation, documenting the natural world with the same precision I'd once applied to tax codes and briefly to betrayal. The painted bunting became an annual visitor, showing up each spring like a colorful reminder of new beginnings. Other rare species followed: a scissor-tailed flycatcher, a western tanager, even a magnificent frigate bird blown inland by a storm. My yard became known in birding circles as a vagrant trap, one of those magical places where unexpected species turned up with surprising regularity. It's because you're watching, Sarah said. Most people miss the extraordinary things in their own backyards because they're not paying attention. She was right, of course. I'd learned to pay attention, to really see what was in front of me. It had started as a pandemic hobby, become a tool of discovery in the worst possible way, and finally transformed into something life-affirming. The smart feeders evolved, the technology advancing to the point where they could identify not just species, but individual birds, tracking their life stories across seasons and years. I knew my cardinal pairs by name, could predict which juvenile blue jays would claim territory in my yard, celebrated when the nuthatches successfully raised their broods. Other divorced men reached out sometimes, having heard my story through various channels. They wanted to know how I'd survived, how I'd rebuilt, how I'd found meaning again after betrayal. Watch birds, I'd tell them, only half joking. Find something beautiful that doesn't lie. Document it. Share it with others who understand. Build a life around truth and patience and small wonders. The rest follows. Some thought I was crazy. Others bought binoculars and joined local Audubon societies. A few became serious birders, finding the same solace I had in the reliable patterns of migration and breeding, the honest simplicity of creatures driven by instinct rather than deception. Jennifer remarried eventually, I heard through mutual acquaintances. A fellow marketing executive from her new company in Portland. I hoped she'd learned from our disaster, that she'd found whatever she'd been looking for in those Tuesday and Thursday appointments. Mostly, I hoped she'd found honesty, with herself if not with others. Richard Sterling's fall had been more dramatic. After losing his job and family, he'd spiraled for a while before eventually rebuilding in a different city. He became, of all things, a motivational speaker focusing on ethical leadership and the cost of compromised integrity. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew the real story. Miguel had reinvented himself too, becoming a physical therapist specializing in sports injuries. The professional distance probably suited him better than the intimate nature of personal training. As for the fourth man, Jennifer's ex who'd threatened lawyers, he'd faded back into obscurity, just another ghost from a painful chapter. The bird feeder company continued to innovate, and I became an unofficial beta tester for their new products. My yard bristled with high-tech equipment, all focused on the simple goal of observing and understanding the natural world. The company used my testimonials carefully, never explicitly mentioning the circumstances of my discovery, but highlighting the unexpected benefits of detailed nature observation. 10 years after that first painted bunting, I stood in my yard with Sarah, now my wife of 3 years. We'd married in a simple ceremony at our favorite birding spot, exchanging vows as sandhill cranes called overhead. No elaborate promises, no unrealistic expectations, just two people committing to share their lives with the same patient observation we brought to birding. Any regrets? She asked, watching a new generation of cardinals discover the feeders. About what? All of it. The way you found out, the divorce, the years it took to trust again. I considered the question, one I'd asked myself countless times. I regret that Jennifer chose deception over communication. I regret the pain we both went through. But the discovery itself? The bird feeder revealing the truth? No, I don't regret that. Even though it destroyed your marriage? It didn't destroy anything. It revealed what was already broken. The marriage was dead the moment she chose to schedule her first afternoon appointment. The bird feeder just showed me the corpse. That's a grim metaphor, but an accurate one. And look what grew from that death. This life, this passion, this partnership we have. None of it would exist if I'd remained in ignorant comfort. A yellow-rumped warbler landed on the feeder, my father's favorite bird. I smiled, remembering his notation in the field guide Jennifer had returned. Beauty in the common, he'd written. Joy in the everyday. He was right. The rare birds were thrilling, the painted buntings and vagrant warblers that set the birding community abuzz. But the real joy was in the daily observations, the reliable visitors, the subtle changes that marked the seasons. The birds that showed up exactly when and where they were supposed to, with no hidden agendas or secret schedules. I love you, Sarah said suddenly. I love that you turned the worst moment of your life into something meaningful. I love that you can look at those feeders without bitterness. I love that you chose to keep watching, keep believing in beauty. I love you too, I said, meaning it with a depth I'd thought I'd never feel again. Thank you for being patient with me, for understanding why I needed time, for being exactly who you appear to be. Like the birds? Better than the birds. They're just following instinct. You're choosing to be trustworthy. That's infinitely more valuable. As if in response to our conversation, a flash of rainbow colors caught my eye. Another painted bunting, perhaps a descendant of that first fateful visitor, landed on the original smart feeder. It pecked at the seeds with delicate precision, its beauty undimmed by the associations it carried. I raised my camera, a newer model but the same basic purpose, and captured the moment. Later, I'd share it with my birding community, another data point in the ongoing story of urban wildlife and changing migration patterns. But for now, I just watched, appreciated, and felt grateful for the strange journey that had brought me here. The bird feeder had indeed revealed more than just birds. It had exposed betrayal, yes, but ultimately, it had shown me the path to a more authentic life. One built on observation, truth, and the patient accumulation of moments of beauty. Sometimes the universe sends its messages through the strangest messengers. Mine came wearing rainbow feathers, carrying the seeds of destruction and rebirth in equal measure. The painted bunting that changed everything. And I was still watching, still ready for whatever revelations might arrive at my feeders. Because that's what birders do. We watch, we wait, we document, and we find meaning in the endless patterns of wings against sky. The smart feeder clicked and whirred, cataloging its latest visitor with mechanical precision. Somewhere in the cloud, data accumulated, patterns emerged, stories unfolded. Most of them were simple. Bird arrives, bird eats, bird leaves. But sometimes, if you were paying attention, they revealed profound truths about the nature of trust, the pain of betrayal, and the possibility of redemption. All you had to do was keep watching.